Hello, everybody, and Happy New Year.
Woo!
We're, yeah,
2024.
I know, party it up. We're actually back. We've had a pretty long hiatus for the last couple months, but we're back and we're more right than ever. We've
I
just
know I am.
you will have never heard a podcast more correct than what we're about to do. So it's great. Um,
Facts.
I'm Chris Thomas. You guys know me. I have this awesome co-host with me this time around. Awesome Sweet Tea on TikTok. I'll put her handle up here, and we're gonna have a great conversation tonight. It's New Year's, so we're gonna start off with New Year's resolutions. There's a lot of crazy stuff happening in the world since we've last been on. America, um, we love Osama bin Laden now. Apparently, um,
How could you
we
not?
right. We hate the Jews, and it's
Yeah.
now unfashionable to have any empathy towards the Jews. It's just you have to be a
hmm
Jew hater to be accepted in mainstream society.
hmm
Um, Gender madness is still wreaking havoc across the country, and it's just been a wild few months. But we're going to start off positive. We're going to talk about some New Year's resolutions, and I know Terry, you had some stuff you wanted to say about that because we like to
I
be
I
positive on here.
think I think the most amazing thing that's happened here recently with all the stuff in Israel is somehow Islam and genderqueer theory has married up and now they get along. Is that what
Apparently,
that's
I mean that's the word on the street.
apparently? And is that the street that you land on when they throw you off a building for being gay?
Yes, exactly. I couldn't have put
I
it
think it's
better.
called the gay on the street. Is what you
Exactly,
is what you
exactly.
refer to. I have two New Year's resolutions. Now I have one New Year's resolution that I have been doing every year since my 30s,
Uh
and
huh.
I have managed to keep that New Year's resolution. So I'm going to stick with it this year, and that is I am not going to try heroin. I've been successful at that for years. I'm going to stick with it.
I should put that on mine. I was so
Okay.
hell bent on trying it that I.
Yeah, to make it a New Year's resolution, it's kept me away. The other one is I have decided on a daily basis I will choose violence on social media every single time. I used to scroll past nonsense and not say anything. I would not make videos, but I have decided I am choosing violence this year on social media. I have picked fights with pro pallies every day for the last 7 days. It's very entertaining. They get very angry at me. But yeah, I am choosing violence on social media and I'm not passing anything by. I'm not letting anything go. It is on like Donkey Kong eating popcorn with while hanging out with Ray Dong Chong playing ping pong, and you can't get any more on than that.
And just as a
So,
PSA for all the viewers, and with this new world we live in, remember everybody, there's nothing more violent than a dissenting opinion.
oh
There's,
yeah,
there's nothing more violent than that.
and I can tell you, I to the pro Palestinians and the anti Semites, I am possibly the most violent person in the world. I'm
Yeah, if you
basically a
want,
terrorist.
I can blur your face if you're afraid.
I'm basically a terrorist on TikTok with my Zionism.
Yes,
So yeah, and I'm good with that. I've chosen it. I'm committed to it.
good.
That's my New Year's resolution.
That's your chosen identity heading into
Yes,
2024.
and I'm super committed to this podcast. Although I'm not sure I'm smart enough to do it, but we'll get to that in a few minutes.
Awesome. Yeah, so I just want to give kind of a heads up to viewers that in light of what we're about to show you, which I'll let you talk about in a second, Terry, this might
Mhm.
be our last podcast. I think we're just too
It
stupid to
probably
do this
will be.
podcast.
Well, definitely for me because I'm in rural America. So definitely for me. I'm barely a citizen anymore in Chris Matthews' opinion.
So Terry, give us a little lead into what we're about to
So,
see.
and I didn't put the clip up because I can't stand Joy Behar. I just can't watch her. But I don't know if you guys saw the clip where she was like, if we let people choose their own president, they're going to elect Trump. Yeah, that's how it works in America. We let people choose their own president, and we got Woodrow Wilson, and we got Biden. It happens, okay? And so she was very upset that the average person was being allowed to think for themselves. But Chris Matthews did an interview on MSNBC, and we're going to show the clip.
At the table, as that package details, President Biden heads into the new year with some pretty negative momentum, pretty low poll numbers, real questions and on the Democratic base about his handling of the war. Some good news on the economy, but hasn't really broken through yet. As we take a step back and we're about to enter an election year, how do you see things?
Well, I think it's wide open. I think Trump could win. He could win in Pennsylvania. I can see the rural areas where it's been about 68% in those counties, 50-some counties, besides Pittsburgh and Philly, in that big middle T there. I can see them growing. I can see the minority vote sloughing off a bit. The women, of course, in the burbs can decide the thing on abortion rights. A real opportunity there to vote. I think the thing that Biden has to do is he's got to enlarge the youth vote and minority vote. He's got to say to people, here's why you vote, and here's why it's important you vote. With the power to vote, you have the power to protect your rights. Women can protect their rights through Ohio cases like that, where you actually can see they will vote a way that shows that they're in power. How do you empower yourself? You vote. So he's got to connect democracy, which is a big word, to voting rights and people's rights, their own personal rights as young people, as minorities. You can protect your rights if you vote. But he's got to tie that together, and he's got to make it optimistic about, and he also has to give a State of the Union address, which includes some opportunities. Now, I was trying to think about what brings together the college-educated young couple and the uncollege-educated ones that didn't go to college, higher education. It's probably housing. Something as simple as we want to own a house someday. Something that the people in their 20s think, someday we're going to have a house, we're going to have kids, we're going to have room, a yard to play in, schools that are okay, and it's going to be okay. We're going to make it. But I have to get that sense of hope back. And I think the word hope is very important, just like it was with Barack Obama.
Certainly the State of the Union in a few months.
First of all, I am astounded that this guy wants to argue Biden should run on rights. This is a man who violated the First and Fourth Amendment rights of hundreds of thousands of citizens because they didn't vote for him. This is, to come out and say you should vote for your rights, unless you don't vote for Biden and then you don't have any anymore. And for people who don't know what they're talking about, in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals backed this up, and of course Biden went to the Supreme Court, but the Biden administration has been caught silencing opposition on social media. Now, while social media, TikTok can do whatever they want, and so can X, the government cannot use them as an agent to silence people they don't agree with.
Hold on, though, Terry. I think what we're missing is when you hear somebody who's a leftist or somebody who would work in the Biden administration, when you hear them talking about rights, what they're referring to, they're not referring to the Bill of Rights. They're referring to the rights that were invented by liberal Supreme Court justices, the substantive rights formed from substantive due process. Those are the rights they're talking about. So they're talking about abortion and the fake rights. That's what they're talking about. They're not talking about the Bill of Rights, Terry.
No,
what are you
it's
crazy?
Okay. Yeah, it's okay to violate the rights of people who disagree with you. And I can tell you what I know. That didn't happen in 1930s Germany. So, and then the Fourth Amendment right. So, for people who don't know, Chris, I'll tell the story real quick. The FBI obtained FISA warrants, which are for foreign espionage. There is a section called 702 that allows you to spy on American citizens if they are communicating with a foreign agent, right? So the FBI obtained FISA warrants against Americans, over 256,000, I think, and counting. And they used those warrants to spy on them, listen to them, and access their information online. That is illegal search and seizure, period. When you look at what goes on a warrant, it's where are you going, what are you looking for, what do you intend to find, and what is it going to do for you? And the red flags that identify these Americans as espionage dangers was they went to church, usually Catholic, they were pro-life, and they went to school board meetings and spoke out. You're literally violating the First and Fourth Amendment people's rights because you are flagging them for exercising the First Amendment and then violating their Fourth Amendment rights because you're doing it, and then you're silencing them on social media. So for this clown to talk about voting for rights is just... He's so dumb.
I will tell you, there was something very, very interesting that if we had time, I would have pulled it up today, but I didn't. Maybe we can talk about it more in depth next week. But former Congresswoman, Tulsi Gabbard spoke at America Fest with Turning Point in December, and there's a clip of hers that she uploaded. And it was very eye-opening because it relates to this kind of notion that, the current Democratic Party doesn't care about the Bill of Rights. They care about the fake rights that they've invented, but not the Bill of Rights. And she was actually talking about, it was her first year in Congress as a Democrat in 2013. She'd just been sworn in, and she actually had actually, you know what? I'm actually going to pull it up because it relates to this, and I think it's going to make a good segue, and I have it here.
And around the time of Constitution Day, I got an email saying, hey, you're invited to come to the House floor to be a part of reading the Constitution into the congressional record. I thought, this is awesome. What a great tradition, so that year after year, we're reminded of that oath that we took and what it actually means. So I went down and participated in it. I didn't see very many of my Democrat colleagues there. And so later on, I went and talked to them, and I asked them, like, hey, this was really cool. I was stoked to be a part of this. Did you not get the email? The answer I got was quite condescending. They said, Tulsi, we know you're new here. You don't really quite get how this place works. We don't participate in that because that's a right-wing Republican thing. I was not only shocked, but pretty disheartened and saddened by that response. But now, as we look at their actions year after year and escalating, especially over these last few years, what they said is actually borne fruit. They don't care about the Constitution. They don't care about the vision that our founders had for this country. They are so blinded by their hunger, this insatiable hunger for power, that they are putting their selfish interests above everything else. And they are launching this all-out assault on our God-given rights and freedom.
So there you go.
Wow.
Respecting the Constitution is a right-wing Republican thing. There you have it.
Wow.
There you have it. I don't know if you'd seen that before. Had you seen that before or not?
No, I had not.
Pretty,
and that
pretty eye-opening.
is absolutely astounding because the Constitution is the law of the land.
Yeah, and everybody swears. No matter what party you're on, you're swearing an oath to uphold the Constitution.
To uphold the. And it amazes me because we get on TikTok but I constantly ask people, what constitutional rights are being removed, and they can never name a constitutional right. They don't understand it, right? And that's astounding to me because the Constitution. First of all, the Constitution is such an astounding document. It saddens me that people don't understand what a radical idea that equality of men was at the time that was written, when everything was ruled by dictators and kings and a ruling class.
In fact, you would even say that the founders were some of the most progressive people.
Yeah. And we're going backwards because look at Chris Matthews.
It's that kind of feudal mindset. Those peasants out in the field, they don't know what's going on.
They don't know what's best for them. They don't know that's like when people tell me as a conservative woman, you vote against your own rights. And they're always talking about abortion. And I always say, I do not have the right to end another human life. I'm not voting against my own rights. Okay? Because that's not a right. That's not a right in the Constitution. You can argue that you're pro-abortion, but you cannot argue that it is a right.
That is the right. Exactly.
And so the condescension ruling class attitude just dripped off of him because I'm like,
So if you put him back in the time of the founding, he would be in favor of the monarchy. That's the crazy thing. The founders would be progressive, and he would be in favor of regressing back to a monarchy where there's centralized power, and we say, these stupid peasants in the field.
Yep.
They don't
know what's best for them.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. I am constantly astounded to have conversations with people on the Constitution. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, they have no idea the founding of this country. They say the most ridiculous things. Yeah. And so our schools are not exceptional now, but our schools should be.
Well, one of the things, I mean, you were involved in that argument with that bozo. The one of the
You're gonna
ones
have
I
to narrow it way down.
well, I think you'll recognize the comment. He said, well, I don't know, but maybe he wasn't in this exchange with you, but somebody said to me, I know you made some replies to him too. It was the guy who we were talking to about abortion. Who said
Yes.
that's different DNA and all that nonsense. That'll be
Yes.
another podcast episode. But he told me when I referenced the founding principles in our Declaration about unalienable rights endowed by our Creator that can't be taken away. He told me that that the founding principles in the Declaration, and I quote, he said, have nothing to do with the Constitution. He said they're totally separate.
No.
He said
No, they're not.
He said the words that I was referencing from the Declaration, because they're not in the Constitution, it means they're irrelevant to the Constitution. No, and
No.
he doesn't understand the founding. The Declaration was the framework through which you have to view and apply the Constitution.
Yeah, and the Declaration of Independence was a promise to the colonies that said, this is what we stand for. If you fight with us against England in this revolution,
we're going to protect. Yes,
these are the rights we're going to give you. These are the rights we're going to protect. It is the firing salvo over the bow that told England to step off, and was a promise made to the colonists that we, the wealthy who are funding this war and want this, are not going to make ourselves a ruling class. We're not going to establish ourselves as that. So the Declaration of Independence, and again, is one of the most radical documents.
It's one of the most radically progressive documents. I mean, I want to use that word because it will drive people on the left crazy
to
think that our founding was progressive. Our founding was radically progressive.
Yes. Yes. It was something that, if you go back and look at the number of people who wrote about the American experiment, it was crazy at that time. People just couldn't believe what was happening. But it is the promise to the colonists that we will not rule you. You will be self-governed. Exactly. And to say that, as she said, that we don't believe in the Constitution is to say we believe we're a ruling class. We don't believe in individual rights.
And I think seeing somebody who's an American citizen say the Declaration is completely divorced in meaning from and significance from the Constitution, that proves the school systems have failed. I mean, I think there's nothing more clear than hearing somebody say that. If they could get through secondary education, get through all their U.S. history courses, and think that the Declaration has nothing to do with our Constitution.
Well, not only that they think the government gives us our rights, protects our rights, and that our rights are defined by laws, and they don't understand that our rights are defined by the Constitution, and that laws then protect those rights. I don't know what school you're going to, but if you paid for a college education, you got ripped off.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I don't know what else to say.
100% agree. Now, if we go abroad a little, because we know how bad things are here at home.
Yes. It's awful.
Let's wait a little bit into kind of what's going on a global scale here, because as everyone knows, we had the horrible
Is there stuff going on a global scale?
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like there's World War III here, so who knows what's going on out there.
Right now, Chris, I'm concerned about who's going in what bathroom, okay? I can't be bothered with anything else going on, okay?
So we all know how horrible, and I'm going to stop smiling because it's not funny. Okay. The horrible attack that occurred in by Hamas on October 7th, and all the division that's stoked up here at home, because I remember, well, I don't remember, but I remember I was a kid. I was, in school when 9/11 happened, and everybody could get together and we could link arms and we could say, let's heal this country. Let's mourn these losses, but also stand together against this evil. And there was obviously it's never absolute, but there wasn't this 50-50 political divide that we have over like we do today. And, one of the things we hear thrown all around, and I think both sides don't necessarily know how to define certain terms like Zionism and things like that. So we want to break it down for you guys, our viewers, a little bit here and talk about kind of what is Zionism, what is anti-Zionism, and why we take the position that in the framing of today's social political climate, most of the time, if you're an anti-Zionist, you are likely an anti-Semite too, because you hear a lot of people say that anti-Zionism isn't anti-Semitism. We're going to make the case about why we think it is, why in the context of our discussions today we think it is. And I know, Terry, this is a topic that you have read a lot about. I'd love if you could just walk us through, what is Zionism?
I mean, Zionism at its most basic, I mean, there's a lot of writing about it, right? But Zionism at its most basic is Israel has a right to exist, and that the Jewish people have a right as a group of people, an ethnicity, to self-determination in their homeland. That's really all Zionism is. And I always ask people, well, what is Zionism? Oh, it means genocide. You're an idiot. That is not what it means, okay? Zionism simply means Israel has a right to exist. So if you say, I am anti-Zionist, what you're saying is Israel does not have a right to exist, and that the Jewish people are not a recognized ethnicity with a right to self-determination. That's what you're saying. Because Zionism in its most basic form, it's not religion. People, oh, it's tied to religion. It is not. Zionism was founded in Europe. It was created by atheists. So it was not founded on the idea of Judaism or religion of any kind. It was founded on the idea that Jewish people have a right to exist within their homeland, and they do, and that they have a right to self-determination as a group of people. And this is something that's practiced all over the world for people, right? Each country has that.
So let me interrupt, Terry, and say that some people might fire back and they might say, well, if it has nothing to do with religion, why is it anti-Semitic to be anti-Zionist? Like, if it has nothing to do with religion, why would it be wrong?
Because the Jews are not, you're not Jewish because of a religion. That's why. So, I mean, when you look at, and there's a really great creator, and we should put his tag up, he talks about this, Ryan Knows Things. But he also expressed this, is the idea of an ethnogenesis, right? So a lot of the argument is Abraham was Arabic, and so therefore Jews are, no, he wasn't. Abraham was Sumerian, right? He did live in Ur. Ur was a Sumerian. Sumeria people from Mesopotamia came there and founded Ur, right? And Abraham was not Jewish. He was Sumerian. He went to Canaan, now Israel, the Levant. But that is where the Jews had their ethnogenesis and became a people and an ethnicity. That is where their traditions were started. That is where their religion was born. But that is where their identity as a people was formed, as a group. And even in dysphoria, they carried that with them and continued to practice the things that made them Jewish and an ethnicity. So to say that, oh, they don't belong there, it's not right, that's not true. That is their homeland, because that is where their ethnogenesis happened. That's where their holy sites are. That's where their historical sites are. And this is true of Arabs. When people say Palestinians deserve to be in their homeland is the Arabian Peninsula. That's where Arabs had their ethnogenesis. That's where their culture, their religion, their holy sites, their historical sites are. So if Palestinians want to go to their homeland, they need to go back to the Arab Peninsula and to Saudi Arabia. I'm not saying Palestinians can't stay in Israel. I'm not saying that. But if your argument is about the homeland and culture, then Zionism simply says this is where the ethnogenesis of Jews happened. They have a right to be there and to exist. So to be anti-Zionist is saying you don't acknowledge their ethnicity, you don't acknowledge them as a people, you don't acknowledge their right to be in a homeland, and you don't acknowledge the right of the state of Israel to exist. That's bigotry. Yeah, and I never say that about Arabic people.
And I'll remind everybody. I know you and I have talked about this offline too. I'll remind everybody there are currently 22 Arab nation states right now that make up the League of Arab States in the European Union, and none of these people. They say they don't want Israel to exist as a Jewish state,
Mm-hmm.
which is, the only Jewish state. It's the only Jewish state
Yep.
on the planet, but they're fine with 22 Arab nation states existing.
And not only that, keep in mind, those Arab states are Islamic national states, right? Israel has a population that's 2% Christian, 18% Muslim, and then the rest are atheists or Judaism, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Islamic states, Arab states, are Islamic national states. They impose a religion, and nobody complains about that. Nobody complains about that.
But yeah, they'll complain when a Republican politician mentions the Bible.
Yep.
That's all of a sudden a Christian nationalist theocracy.
Yes.
Here.
Yes.
But we have no issue with women getting stoned to death for walking alone without their husband in these Arab states. That's fine. They can do that, and that's fine.
Well,
But
and
God forbid-
that's the thing about the Queers for Palestine.
Yes.
You're upset because, we're becoming a Christian nationalist state. I'm not going to be able to use a different bathroom and pretend I'm a different gender. But you support people who will not support you, don't allow for any of that. And not only that, most regimes are oppressive to women. Even Saudi Arabia, which we consider progressive, just allowed women to start driving in like 2018. They are still not allowed to vote. They're still not allowed to leave their house unaccompanied. They're not allowed to travel without permission. They can only drive if they have somebody in the car with them. And they still have to keep their head covered and be covered. And that's the most progressive Islamic state.
And we're talking about criminal penalties for breaking that stuff, not social poo-pooing. We're talking about this stuff is codified into law, and you're going to get thrown in jail or killed.
Well, you look at Iran, which I think is one of the most extremes, but in Iran, they're literally putting gay people to death.
Yeah.
They're hanging them and shooting. They just did a whole rash of executions, and nothing was said. But if a Christian gets up and says, I'm going to vote against abortion, you're shoving your religion on me. Go Palestine. You do realize they're a little bit, they're going to, because the thing is, as a Christian conservative, right, as that cliche, I don't want gay people in jail. I don't want them to have any different right. I want them to have the same constitutional rights that I do. I don't really care. As long as you have the same rights, I don't really care what you do, right? Yeah. But in Iran, which is run by the mullahs and is an Islamic fascist state, you will be put to death for who you are dating or attracted to or in love with. And they have been doing that, and everybody is silent about it. And it's disgusting, really. It really is that nobody is willing to speak for the same people who are out screaming from the river to the sea have absolutely nothing to say about the tyranny that is going on. And they criticize Israel, which is not a theocracy and not a religious state. But they will not criticize, and they support the Islamic fascist state that Hamas wants to put in.
Absolutely true. Now, in this conflict, there's a lot of criticism of the Israeli government, and this is something that you see the argument turned on its head. That as we've talked about, because they don't think Israel should exist as a nation state. Israel is a genocidal, colonizing oppressor. Now, I do want to talk because there's a lot of these words thrown around. And I've actually done some research on the Israeli, the official IDF code of conduct. And there's two parts in here. First, let's talk about actually how they're conducting warfare over there. Unfortunately, Hamas has built this infrastructure of tunnels under civilian areas. So the IDF is trying to bomb the crap out of Hamas, as they should.
Yeah.
Because
Well, and Chris, listen, I think it's important to note, too, that there is a difference between what one soldier does and what is military policy.
Exactly.
There's a difference between what one lunatic politician, and we have lunatic politicians, right? Comes out and says, and what the government actually does. There is a difference between opinion and statement and literal policy of what is happening. Unfortunately, in war, all soldiers commit war crimes. Not all soldiers, but there are war crimes in every war. You have that. There's stress. Things happen. So you have bad apples that get into the military, of course. But there is a difference between punishing those people and acknowledging we don't support that, and having an actual policy that says, hey, we want you to gang rape every woman when you
Exactly.
see
Well, it's
her.
the same.
And that's the
It's a
difference that people
comparable
don't seem to
way
want to get.
of talking about police brutality here. Some police may be out of line, and they may brutalize a young black man when they shouldn't. But it's
Mm-hmm.
not. It's not due to a systemic policy that tells
Mm-hmm.
police they have to target and mistreat black people. And people
Right.
can't seem to separate that there's always going to be some rogue assholes in every
Yeah.
profession. Um,
Yes.
and the military is no different. Doctors, you see doctors committing kinds of horrible malpractice. Every profession under the sun, there's going to be
Yeah.
some bozos that are going to misbehave, but that doesn't mean that it's the policy to. So that's a great point, Terry.
Well,
Um,
and also, just real quick, not gonna, but it's also the culture of the people. I
mhm.
read a book, Fly Boys. I suggest people read it, and it talked
Yeah.
about the difference of how America viewed war crimes versus how Japan viewed war crimes in
Mhm.
World War II. And they said in America they prosecuted war crimes, and that the public was outraged and demanded justice. In Japan, there were two guys who invaded China. They were trying to get to Nanking,
Yep.
and they would go into villages and they would decapitate civilians, and they would line the roads with the heads of these civilians. And in Japan, that was front page news, where they literally had pictures and counted who was ahead, and they were fans of it. So you also have to look at the culture of what is Israel willing to tolerate from its government
Exactly.
versus what Palestinians are willing to tolerate from their government.
Exactly. And the two clauses that I want to point. I'm gonna put it on the screen,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm also gonna read it. There's two bullets here, and this is from the IDF Code of Conduct. The source here is the icenter.org, and it outlines basically all of the principles of ethics that the IDF has to follow. There's two that I want to point out. Number one is human life. The IDF servicemen and women will act in a judicious and safe manner in all they do out of recognition of the supreme value of human life. During combat, this is the part I want to hone in on. During combat, they will endanger themselves and their comrades only to the extent required to carry out their mission. So I've seen a lot of people, pro-Pally people on TikTok, say, if Hamas is in the tunnels and they're under civilian areas, why doesn't the IDF go into the tunnels and fight them in the tunnels? I've seen people write this.
Yeah, that's stupid.
There's your answer. During combat, they will endanger themselves and their comrades only to the extent required to carry out the mission. Why would they choose a more deadly,
Yeah.
more dangerous way to execute the mission than they have to?
Yeah.
It's not logical.
Well,
Their
I think
job-
when it talks about, notice it doesn't say the Israeli supreme value of life. It says the supreme value of life.
Exactly. It's recognizing there's an objective,
Mm-hmm.
moral obligation to protect as many lives as possible. Absolutely.
Yes.
The second point is purity of arms. The IDF servicemen and women will use their weapons and force only for the purpose of their mission, only to the necessary extent, and will maintain their humanity even during combat. IDF soldiers will not use their weapons and force to harm human beings who are not combatants or prisoners of war, and will do all in their power to avoid causing harm to their lives, bodies, dignity, and property. Now, this basically tells you if they didn't have to bomb civilians this way, they wouldn't. It's against every moral fiber in their minds, bodies, and souls to do what they're doing, but they're not going to execute missions in a way that endangers their forces even more than necessary.
Well, not only that, remember, Chris, Israel, the attack happened on 10/7. Israel didn't go into Gaza on 10/8. Israel could have been like, we're done. They could have gone in 10/8. Gaza would be gone. This war would be over. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
They waited. They kept saying, you need to evacuate. You need to go. You need to move. And I always go back to the Allied powers when we carpet bombed Germany.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't give them any notice, right?
We killed a hell of a lot more people. A lot of estimates place it at nearly 500,000 German civilians dead. And that's why I keep saying these people today, these Free Palestine people, they would be calling for a ceasefire against the Third Reich if it were the 1940s. And that's terrifying to me.
They would support the Third Reich because they hate Jewish people. So, in some estimates, 500,000's low. There's actually estimates as high as 1.3 million.
Oh, I believe it. I believe it.
Yeah, in Germany. But you also have to look at Japan, where we dropped the bomb, right? We didn't. So the fact that Israel waited They gave people the opportunity to evacuate. And I also want to point out that these numbers that are coming from Hamas, right? Gang rapists and terrorists don't have a lot of credibility with me. I know you feel differently, but my other thing is, if they're turning everything to rubble and you have to dig through it, how do you know how many people are dead?
Exactly.
And they're including any enemy combatants. Israel is saying that they've killed 7,000 to 8,000 enemy combatants. But Hamas just puts it all in numbers. And again, it's women and children. Well, where are your men? Did your men run off and leave all the women? Give me a break.
Exactly.
So
Now, people might fire back and they might say, well, if their code of conduct is so pure, why were there IDF soldiers caught doing disrespectful things to property? And why do they get away with it? I'm going to talk about instances where they didn't get away with it, because this is something where that you touched on earlier, Terry, which is there's going to be bad apples in every group, but it is the moral and ethical guidelines that are put out that everybody in the IDF will strive to. And is there accountability when things don't go according to plan? The answer is yes. Right. I'm going to actually point to a specific instance. This occurred a couple weeks ago in December.
Okay.
Where a video came out mid-December of Israeli soldiers kind of parading around in a mosque. They were being disrespectful, obviously, to the religion of Islam in a shelled-out part of town. And this went all around on social media, caused a big uproar. And what did the IDF authority do? They removed this entire group of soldiers from operational activity. They benched them and said, even though they were successful soldiers in the conflict, they benched them. They are no longer in active duty. So they sent a clear message that, hey, if you're going to play outside the bounds of what we find to be good and decent, we're going to hold you accountable.
Yeah. Well, they also, it went around social media where they had a video of IDF soldiers burning food supplies in a store. And Israel responded, condemned it, and pulled them off the battlefield. And they're under investigation for that. So Israel is responding, and they're investigating this. And, so I think the thing is you have to look at what is the response and what does their society expect, right?
Exactly.
Because Palestinians have not come out and condemned Hamas for what they did.
Exactly.
They celebrated it, right? Nobody in Hamas is getting smacked down for gang raping women, which is something that the IDF, you get prosecuted for if you do.
Exactly. One side is striving to not gang rape and torture civilians, and the other one isn't. And it's that's why there can be no moral equivalency here.
No, there's not. There is zero moral equivalency, and there can't be any, because then we're going to reach a place where we're actually going to try and negotiate with people. I think Bill Maher, when he said it, you want to negotiate, but when one side's only acceptance of negotiation is everybody on the other side has to die, you can't negotiate anymore.
Exactly.
There's no negotiate. There's nothing to be done.
Exactly.
And I mean, that's it. There's nothing else to be said. But again, this, like I said, it goes back to that understanding of what will a government and society accept. Hamas and Palestinians celebrated 10/7. Israel is still calling in their soldiers and punishing them for being inappropriate. And that makes all the difference, right? That I think that tells you everything. Yeah, I don't even know, does Hamas have a moral code of conduct we could look at? Do they have a list of...
I haven't found one. If I find one, we can pull it up next time.
Okay, yeah, I definitely want to look over that, because I'd like to see it.
I think they put out a statement, though, that says do everything as if it's opposite day. So if the rest of the world says gang raping is bad, we say it's good. But I'll have to check the source on that, though.
Yes, I definitely, you need to check. I haven't seen their code of conduct. I'm not sure how they punish people who break it. But I would be fascinated to actually see that. Maybe I'm going to start asking for that on TikTok. I'm going to be like, well, here's the IDF code of conduct. Why don't you supply me the Hamas kind of code of conduct? I'd love to read that. So, The moral equivalency thing really infuriates me, as if there's any justification for what happened on 10/7, because there's
Exactly.
not.
Exactly.
It just, I don't, and they're like, oh, they've been oppressed, they've been, okay. And they always ask, what would you do? And I always say the same thing. I can tell you what I wouldn't do. I would not gang rape anybody, and I would not set a child on fire. Regardless, if you showed up and took the house this is my parents' dream home that they built. I'm staying with my mom, taking care of her, and you can show up and kick us out of this house and take it. Still, I would not set your family on fire.
Well, I mean, what I was going to say is, many of the mass shooters that we have in the United States were bullied terribly as children.
Mm-hmm.
I think the right thing to do would be say, let's address bullying, but we're still going to hold you accountable, and you're going to go to prison or get the death penalty for shooting up a school. These people would say that it's okay that they shot up the school because they were bullied.
They had it coming. Yeah, they totally, and
In fact, some of them are saying that. The Nashville shooting against the Christian school, some of the people came out and said they did have it coming because they're Christians. We actually saw people say that. So it's actually not a hypothetical. It's not, they probably would say that. These people would say that.
Yeah, people absolutely. And like I said, I don't really care what you do. I'm not going to have women gang raped, and I'm not going to set children on fire. I'm just not going to do that. And nothing justifies that. And especially because so much of that, the claims that have happened are propaganda or unproven. That's what makes it even more absurd.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So, and one of the things, I used to be a social worker, and I remember I would have clients come in and they would always say, I would ask them, okay, so you use drugs. Yeah. Well, I used drugs because my mother left me when I was a child. And I would always ask, well, did she come back when you started using drugs? No. Okay, well, that's not why you use drugs. And that's the same thing. You're telling me that, we're gang raping and setting people on fire because we've been oppressed. Are you not oppressed now? Okay, well, then that's not.
And even if you're going to look at it as revenge, these women in their homes trying to care for their children, they didn't oppress them.
Right. And I could buy your argument if you went after the people who actually harmed you, like if you pulled a John Wick, but you're not. You're just randomly attacking people, right? And Chris, I don't know if you saw, I had the most absurd comment. I was going back and forth in the comments on TikTok last night, and this person actually said to me, I'm always going to believe the oppressed.
Yeah, I saw it.
Over the oppressor.
But that means you've prejudged already. The first thing that hit me is you've prejudged who's who already. You haven't been open to new information. You've already prejudged the situation.
Yeah, and I told her, I said, well, then you're a bigot. And you dehumanize people. No, I don't. Yes, you do. Because she said, you're just a white woman.
There you go.
So, yeah, you're right. I am. But what does that have to do with my credibility? What does that have to do with my character? So I'm like, you look at people, you make an assumption, right? And you go, okay, well, these people are oppressed. These people are not. And so these people are all liars and horrible people. And that is dehumanization at its very core.
Exactly.
And she got very frustrated with me when I kept calling her on it. And she finally, but I was like, I've always believed the oppressor. And so I asked her, I said, so you're telling me that if a poor man raped a rich white woman, you would not believe her? Well, no, it's not like that. Why not? I mean, you define as just white women as oppressors. So if a young man of color raped her, why would you believe her?
I've always
it's not like that.
I've always wondered in these kind of back and forths that happen on TikTok, because you're usually doing it in the comments and we're not seeing their face. I wonder if it's like those cartoons where it's a robot and they just short circuit and then their head starts vibrating and sparks start flying. I really think that's what's happening here. Some of these.
Yeah, when they go to block you, they're just like, ah.
Yeah, that's when the head is exploding.
Yeah, because when I told her, I said, oh, well, you're a bigot and you dehumanize people. And she was like, what do you mean? I would never do that. Lady, you just did it.
Does not compute. Does not compute.
Yeah, does not confuse. I'm a good person. It's not.
No, it's all totally true. I want to shift the conversation a little bit. We've talked about the dehumanizing over in Israel. We all know there's dehumanizing happening here on our own shores. We're erasing womanhood. We're calling women bleeders and chest feeders and
Not
all
to
that.
my face, they're not, and not more than once.
Yeah, right. But anyway,
Not to
yes.
my face, they're not,
I mean,
and not more than once they won't call me that. Promise you that.
so women here, and I think a lot of people don't really realize to the extent people say, oh, it's silly words, but we've talked about on past episodes, words have meaning, words have power.
Yes.
I
Why
don't
do you
think
think
that
they want to change them? Why do you think they
exactly.
are so desperate to change them if they don't matter?
Exactly, because those who command the English language really have the
Yes.
cultural power. That's really
Yes.
what it comes down to.
Yes.
And there's a great bill being put through in Florida. It's called. I'm actually going to pull up the text on the screen. This is
Okay.
called. This is called. Well, now I'm going to cut this out because I need to find the. Okay. Yes. Okay.
Come on, man.
I was doing good up until now. Okay. Florida House Bill 599. The bill says, the bill prohibits any adverse personnel action, which would mean the discharge, suspension, transfer, or demotion of an employee or a contractor, or the withholding of bonuses, the reduction in salary or benefits, or any other adverse action taken against an employee or a contractor within the terms and conditions of employment by an employer, for failing to adhere to any company policy that compels speech as it relates to, quote, personal titles and pronouns. Now, this bill, and one of the things that makes this bill so great, is that it actually defines sex as the classification of a person as either female or male based on the organization of the body of such person for a specific reproductive role as indicated by the person's sex chromosomes, naturally occurring sex hormones.
I love it. I love it.
Yep, and internal and external genitalia present at birth. This is as close as you can get. This is to just saying the transgender ideology is false. This is like the closest you can get to a bill flat out saying gender ideology is BS.
Is false. Yeah, and you cannot make people believe or embrace that. I watched a live today with a guy. He was like, well, I was born a woman. I was just in a man's body. No, you were born a man.
Exactly. Now,
And
let me go even further here. It also says, it is the policy of the state that a person's sex is an immutable biological trait and that it is false to ascribe to a person a pronoun that does not correspond to such person's sex. This section does not apply to individuals born with a genetically or biochemically verifiable disorder of sex development. So for all these lefties that are going to come out and they're going to talk about the less than 1% of the population that's intersex, this bill covers it. This bill covers it. Now, an employee or a contractor may not be required as a condition of employment to refer to another person using that person's preferred personal title or pronouns if such personal title or pronouns do not correspond to that person's sex.
Yes.
An employee or a contractor may not provide to an employer his or her preferred personal title or pronouns if such personal title or pronouns do not correspond to his or her sex. Then, an employee or contractor may not be asked by an employer to provide his or her personal title or pronouns or be penalized or subjected to adverse personnel action for not providing his or her preferred personal title or pronouns.
Wow.
So this is now here's where it gets even better, and you're going to love this, I think.
Yeah.
It is an unlawful employment practice for an employer to take adverse personnel action against an employer or contractor because of the employer or contractor's deeply held religious or biology-based beliefs.
Wow. I love this bill.
Including a belief in traditional or biblical views of sexuality and marriage, or the employer or contractor's disagreement with gender ideology. They flat out say it. Whether those views are expressed by the employer or contractor or away from the worksite. The reason why this is so impressive is they're not just saying religious people who may have traditional views on gender, but people who are just common sense people who believe in biology.
People who just believe in biology, people who just believe in
and that's
science.
What I think is so different about this, because you often hear religious exemption for things like abortion or same-sex marriage. But this is flat out saying you don't even have to be religious. You just have to be someone with common sense.
You just have to have a couple of wrinkles on your brain to absorb legitimate information.
Exactly. So what do you think, Terry? I love this bill.
I do too, because I'm not going to conform to somebody's gender delusion, and I probably would have been fired in Florida.
One of my favorite things about this is just, we have civil protections for religious beliefs, but the term biology-based beliefs it's like bravo,
Yeah,
bravo.
because I believe in actual science that says men are men and women are women.
Because what's going to happen if it didn't have that biology-based belief part? What you'd
Mm-hmm.
probably see is you'd see efforts by opposing counsel in litigation to try to make people who are disagreeing with this, trying to make them prove that they're sufficiently religiously conservative.
Yep.
And I think that's where you'd run into trouble. Like, you have
Mm-hmm.
people having to justify that they're religious enough that it's
Yeah.
causing them to disagree like this.
Yeah. Do you go to
And-
church or do you? Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe there's some religious people who maybe they're Christians, maybe they're not, maybe they're just biology believing people. Maybe they don't go to church every Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they go to church, but they go once a month and they don't go every
Yeah.
month. And you're going
Exactly.
to have opposing counsel saying, well, it's not necessarily religious based if you're not that religious. Here
Right.
you're covered. And I
Yeah.
think
You
that's
don't
what's
do
so
these
great.
things. You don't follow these things in the Bible, so obviously you're not religious. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what's so great about this. Now, why should I care about this so much? Because I don't live in Florida and, I haven't been harmed by this. I'm going to show you, and this is going to boggle your mind. I'm not going to disclose what my job is or where I work, but
Mm-hmm.
I had to go through a sexual harassment training. Obviously, we shouldn't be sexually harassing people. I think the left and the right can just agree on that. No sexual harassing.
I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe our president would disagree. But
I mean, if you want to run for office one day, you got to get some practice in. I mean, you're never going to get on the Epstein list, but
So we had to watch this video, and it had
Mm-hmm.
some of the standard stuff that like I have no issue with
Mm-hmm.
about you can't cat call and all that kind of stuff. You can't do quid pro quo,
Mm-hmm.
have sex with me and I'll give you a promotion. That's all stuff we can agree on.
Mm-hmm.
Now there was a section here that basically models how you have to react when somebody misgenders somebody else. So I'm going to play this. I actually got the
Okay.
video clip here. This is from the training that I had
Okay.
to sign off on, and it was and this is totally applicable to this bill because if I had not completed this training and signed that I would follow these policies, I wouldn't have been able to be employed at this
Right.
organization. So
Mm-hmm.
here we go.
You seem happy today.
Yeah, tomorrow's Friday, and I can't wait for a picnic putt-putt fun day. Listen, I was thinking, maybe we can do guys against girls.
Guys against girls.
You're always talking about how good you are. Now you have an opportunity to prove it. But what about Steve?
You mean Stephanie?
In the scenario you just watched, Nick dead-named his coworker Stephanie. How should he respond to Valerie correcting him? Let's watch 2 examples of what might happen next.
I'm sorry, I keep forgetting. What I'm trying to say is, what team should he be on?
She. Hi, Stephanie.
Hey, we were just trying to go over our puppet teams for tomorrow.
And, are you ready to be with the girls, or?
Actually, I just soon stay here, catch up on a few things, and maybe go home early if that's okay.
I think that's Bruce Jenner, by the way.
Sure, that'd be okay.
Thanks.
Really?
Okay, here's scenario 2.
Okay.
What about Steve?
Stephanie.
You're right. Thank you. What about Stephanie?
Well, Stephanie is a girl, so she would play for the girls' team. But I don't think we should do guys versus girls. I think it should be my team versus your team.
Sounds like a winner.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hey,
I heard that you are an excellent putt-putt player.
I have been playing since I was 7 years old.
She's on my team.
So what do you think about that, Terry?
He's on my. That would have been me.
She's on.
Oh.
So yeah, I had to watch. So I had to watch that. Then before that, there was actually a whole glossary of. I had to learn the definition of dead naming, misgendering, and then I had to watch these scenarios and affirm I would comply and I would act out similarly to these scenarios. And I was like, what dystopian planet am I on?
Am I on? Yeah. Where you're telling me that I have to.
So you never had to. I'm sure you never had to do anything like this before.
I haven't trained it now. I train twice a year because of being a contractor. I have to take the client's training and then I have to take my company's training. So I go through all this training twice a year, and I haven't seen that one yet. So
it may be coming, depending on what.
Yeah, I always get in trouble when I'm doing training because I bust out laughing at all the scenarios.
Actually, you know what? If your employer is going to be based where you live, you might not have to. You might not be able to.
And also my contractor is based out of Texas, so now if I work for somebody who's based, the client is based in another state, like Wackadoo, California, I may have to go through that. But
so I'll just say my employer, without saying what it is or where it is, my employer is either in New York or California.
Yeah.
Or Massachusetts. I won't say which.
Yes.
But it's in one of those.
Yeah. And I love how these people don't think it's offensive to me as a female to think that I am condensed down to somebody simply going, "Oh, I'm a female," and that's all there is to it.
Also, isn't it interesting that they actually they use in their exam, they say trans women are women, but they use somebody that looks like a man and sounds like a man in the video.
Yes, that's what I was like. Is this supposed to be Stephanie? Okay.
Yeah, that was Stephanie.
Yeah, that's hello. I'm Stephanie. Okay. All right.
He's like 6'5".
I know. I was like, yeah. It just it's funny to me because in the live I was watching today with the person who had transitioned, the person asked him, "Well, what have you experienced that's similar to women who were not trans?" And they're like, "Misogyny." I wanted to be like, mofo, you are the epitome of misogyny. You are the like, if you look up misogyny, there's literally a man there trying to erase women the way you are. You have never experienced misogyny. Okay.
The funny thing is, the other thing that's maybe a little more subtle in that video is, do you notice how when she's in the scenario, when she's correcting him, the guy for misgendering or dead naming, she does it with such revulsion that you think he said the N-word or something?
Yeah.
Like, she's like,
I thought he said he wanted to eat a baby. Like he wanted baby sushi to eat like a dead baby. That's not what he said? He just... Okay. I thought maybe I didn't hear it correctly. Like I thought he misgendered somebody and then was like, also I would like to eat a live baby because I'm a cannibal. That's what I thought he said. Okay.
Because she contorts her face like, how could you say that?
How could you imply that they're sexist of male? And I love how they make the woman do it, right? They make the woman correct him, showing, oh, women are okay with this, and we, totally. And I'm like, and the thing that cracks me up with this, like the person today with, oh, misogyny. Here's the thing I can tell you as a female who has worked in corporate America for longer than is any of your businesses, before there was sexual harassment training, okay, before any of that happened, and have traveled all over the world and all over the country, I have never, ever had a man say to me, "How do you know you're a woman? Prove it." That's misogyny, okay? Never, ever had a man say, "Well, you're not really a woman." Never had that happen. I've been called names. I've been talked down to. I've been mansplained to. But nobody has ever said, "Well, why do you think you're a woman? Prove it." That's not misogyny, okay?
So we've gone through. I mean, I think over the last approximately hour, we've hit on a lot of different elements of the culture war. We hit misunderstanding the Constitution, the conflict in Israel, gender insanity, and we always want to round it back and kind of end on something that hopefully we can laugh at on TikTok a little bit, since we're both on there battling people every day. And I know, Tara, you found a video that... Do you want to say anything about it, or do you just want to play it?
I sent this video to you because I was like, I don't understand what's happening here. And I'm hoping, like, if you put up the email and people watch this, maybe they can explain it, because I am utterly... And here's the thing. This is living rent-free in my head because I'm still like, what the hell? what the hell? That's, I don't know what else to, like, I sent this to you and was like, what am I missing here?
So just so everybody knows, this video, it's not clever. It's going to look so stupid to you, but somehow it has almost 100,000 likes. So that means it has even way more views than it does likes. I can't see the view count on it right now. Over 2,000 comments, over 5,000 favorites, and almost 1,000 reposts. So
yeah, I don't.
This is the state of this country right now, that this video that we're about to show you actually is popular. And not
and
just...
my brand newborn puppies didn't get that many views, and they're adorable.
I know, but they're owned by a white devil oppressor.
And they are white, and 3 of them are white.
So that's the problem. That's your problem.
That's the problem, yeah. White supremacist puppies.
So I'm going to play 2 videos. First is the video that that this creator, somehow that's gotten so much engagement, has stitched, and then I'm going to show the creator's response here. So... Yeah. Here we go.
An anti-Semite if with Noah and mine. You might be an anti-Semite if you actually think that the Jews or the Israelis doctored the videos that Hamas themselves took of themselves barbarically slaughtering a bunch of Jews. If you in any way think that you don't really know what went on October 7th, Roger Waters, I'm talking to you, you might be an anti-Semite. If you think that that footage in some way is not reflecting exactly what happened as it was broadcast from the GoPros on the terrorists' heads, sorry folks, you might be an anti-Semite. You might be an anti-Semite if you think that the solution to what is going on in the Middle East is that the Jews should just go back to where they came from. Noah? Why? Why? Because the Jews have originated in Judea. This is actually Israel. The Jewish people came from Israel. There's been a Jewish presence in the land of Israel for thousands of years. The Jews are the indigenous people of the land of Israel, so there's nowhere to go back to. And if you think we should go somewhere, you might be an anti-Semite. By the way, being an anti-Semite can also mean that you're subconsciously biased about the Jews. So you don't necessarily think you're anti-Semitic. You have subconscious biases about the Jewish people.
Okay, so all valid points. This is, again, just for clarification, this is not the video that we're mocking and destroying. This is
no. And look, and here's the thing. Let's go real quick. They made 3 points. Yep. Well, I agree that if you deny what Hamas did, you victim blame or you blame Israel for this, that is anti-Semitic. Yeah, I 100% agree with that.
I'm more inclined to believe a known terrorist than a Jewish person. That's really what you're saying. So you have to be an anti-Semite in order to value the credibility of a known terrorist brutalizing, raping people and value their...
And uploading it on their GoPro. To me, this is along the lines of denying the Holocaust. It's disgusting.
So that's point number 1. Point number 2. What was point number 2? Oh, I was saying they should go back to where they came from.
Yes. Again, we talked about ethnogenesis earlier. Jews are from Israel. Anywhere they would go would be in dysphoria, and you are not recognizing the ethnicity of the Jews, of them as a people, their right to self-determination. So
like if I walk down the street and I see a Hispanic man who's a citizen, and I don't know anything about him, and I say, go back to Mexico where you came from, I'm racist. I'm a racist.
You absolutely are.
Against him. Same logic there.
And then she talked about unconscious bias. And you see this with Jews control the media, Jews control Hollywood, Jews control the banks. This myth about the Rothschilds helping the Nazis, that kind of stuff, people accept it as truth and they say it flagrantly. That is bias, and it is absolutely anti-Semitic because it's, to me, spreading lies and propaganda about a group of people for Jewish people is anti-Semitic because you are giving validity to their enemies. It's the same thing as if I started talking about Black Americans and accusing them of all being on welfare or taking drugs, which I know is not true. So it's the same thing. So their point,
even if you would be nice to a Black person and treat them well if you met one, if you're spreading harmful propaganda about them, you're racist against
and I have preconceived notions. So to me, I thought this was valid. I didn't feel that it was controversial.
Nope. And interestingly, none of it. Well, let's just look at the response first, and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
So here is this woman's response to this very uncontroversial.
Uncontroversial to me.
Yep.
Tradition of you might be an anti-Semite if with Noah and
And what about the American Jews who are outraged by a government that they've never been governed by, using their very real daily oppression that they have experienced pretty much their whole life to shield themselves from sanctions against their murderous actions, and conflating that experience of oppression with criticism of a government's actions? What about us? What am I? Am I an anti-Semite? Mime, you have a PhD in neuroscience. Both of you are acting like this is your first goddamn day on the fucking planet. I'm 31 years old, and I would never make a video like this. I mean, come on.
I just
Okay,
want
so
to
what
point out, first of all, I just want to point out really quick before we dive into the substance. She's 31 years old, but she made a video even stupider.
Yes. But she goes, I would never make a video like that. You made the dumbest video.
I'll make one that's much stupider, much less valid.
Yeah. I watched this and I'm like, what is she mad about? I literally don't. I mean, okay, she hates the Israeli government.
She didn't refute any of the points in the original video. That's the thing that stood out to me. Nothing of what she said has anything to do with what was in the video.
Yeah, I don't understand. So you're mad at, and you think they're being childish because they say 10/7 happened, right? Jews are from Israel. And what was the other one? Oh, and you shouldn't have unconscious bias. You shouldn't have hidden bias against Jews.
Yeah.
So I don't understand how that affects her day. Like, is she like, don't believe 10/7? How dare you? And this video has nothing. Okay, you're Jewish. I don't understand what anything you're saying has to do with the original video.
And you know what? I'm somebody who I'm not a crazy foaming at the mouth person. I think you can not be an anti-Semite, and you can even be pro-Israel and have specific policy disagreements with the Israeli government.
Absolutely.
Like, of the government.
Absolutely.
Just like we criticize Joe Biden, but we're not anti-American because we criticize the president.
I have no issue. If you want to criticize the Israeli government, go ahead. You can hate Netanyahu. You can criticize them.
Exactly.
That's fine. I actually have no issue with you criticizing any government.
Exactly.
But this video was not, the original video didn't say anything about the Israeli government.
I thought when you sent it to me, I was genuinely confused because I didn't see any correlation at all between the two videos. I thought you had sent me two things that didn't have anything to do with each other.
No.
I was confused.
I did send you things that have nothing to do with each other. I actually did. But when she's like, what about me? I was like, what about you?
Yeah, what
You're
about
an idiot? What about you?
But isn't that the epitome of the leftist mindset of millennials and Gen Z? It's always, what about me?
Yes.
What about me?
What about me? Well, this is my thing. You could say, I mean, if she'd have got on and said, I don't believe in 10/7, I don't think Jews should live in Israel.
I would say she's batshit crazy, but at least she's addressing the points in the video.
Right. But you're going on about that Israel is shielding, and I'm listening to it the second time when she's talking about shielding themselves from oppression. That didn't even make sense. What are you talking about? Okay. But I don't understand. I just don't understand how her video has anything to do with the original video and why she is so angry at them. And she's like, am I an anti-Semite? No, you're a moron.
Well,
you're a moron.
I think we see this is a tendency on the modern left that they often argue with points that have nothing to do with the original conversation. I mean, if you look at the TikTok battles we were getting into over the last few days, we started talking about whether our rights are endowed by our creator or not, and then somehow we got into is the DNA of your arm different than the DNA of, and that was the same conversation that evolved into that. So if you remember, that was the root of that conversation.
Yes,
was the Declaration.
Yes,
and somehow we ended with bizarre biology claims.
Yeah.
Even though the stem of that part of the discussion was supposedly abortion, he was making claims that had nothing to do with abortion.
Yeah.
So
just absolutely.
So this is the tactic. It's morphed the conversation into something unrecognizable from the beginning, and then once you've confused the other person enough, then you can go, "Ha ha! I won." You don't
get it. You don't get it. You're right. I don't get it.
You're right. I don't get it because you've said nothing that has to do with any of the conversation we were having. I don't get it.
Yeah, and I think that people responded to her rage. Like, people were like, yeah, Yeah, what? Yeah, what? I don't, like, people were like, yeah, I was thinking the same thing. You were thinking the same. You literally were as completely disconnected from the original video as she. How could anybody think the same thing she thought? They have nothing
Right.
to do with each other. And people are, but I think what they're responding to is, again, we see so much anti-Semitism on TikTok, is they're responding to that, oh, Israel is bad and we hate them and you're angry. And so, yeah, that's a good thing. But again, her video literally had nothing to do with the first video at all. And her, with her, am I an anti-Semite? I don't know, but I know you're a moron. What about me? What about you? What?
And you know what? It stems also just back, and I know we talked about education earlier. It stems back to education because, you know, we used to have to do writing prompts about responding to points in literary passages. And this is literally the example of just writing a lengthy essay that has nothing to do with the prompt
Yep.
giving. And so
Yes.
what it shows is people don't even have enough comprehension skills to react to what's in front of them. And
No.
it's really scary for my generation, especially.
For your generation, but I remember I'm watching and I'm sitting there and I'm waiting and I'm just like, I guess I'm missing something here. I'm
Yeah,
going to send
you
this
said
to.
to me, and you asked me if you were missing something. I remember you said, "Am
Yeah.
I missing something?" And I had the same reaction you did. Well, again, Chris Matthews thinks we're both just dumb. So
Well,
maybe
I
we
am
don't
from
know what we're
rural
talking about.
America, and as Joy Behar said, I cannot vote for myself, which is hilarious because I'm not even a Trump supporter. But apparently, I can't. We should not be allowed to vote because we're not the ruling class. And yeah, you're right. I'm being in rural America. You know what, Chris? I'm not going to vote because I'm in rural America, and I can't be trusted to know what is in my own best interest.
And you know what? I was really excited for tonight. I know we're kind of wrapping up now. I was really excited, but for everybody watching, this is going to be our last podcast episode. We're done because
Clearly.
we've clearly learned that we don't have the intelligence to think for ourselves, and advocating for ourselves is just fruitless. So.
If I could get Chris Matthews and Joy Behar to tell me what I need to talk about and feel and think, or maybe we can get in touch with this girl, then I would feel comfortable.
We can do an episode 2 once they give us the talking points they want us to parrot.
Yeah.
Then we can do an episode with that. But until then,
Yeah.
I think we're going to be just done.
I'm not capable of thinking for myself, and I'm told on a regular basis as a conservative female, I don't know what's in my own best interest because apparently getting pregnant and ending the life of that child is the only right that matters as a female. And you know what? This is what I'm going to say in the left hypocrisy. They keep saying that men can be women, but they cannot have an abortion. And we all know that if you cannot have an abortion, you are not a woman.
And I also want to tell you, as the man on this call, you did a great job reading the script I gave you. I know you.
Oh, thank you.
I know you couldn't have thought of any of these things on your own because you're a woman. So I
and
gave
I'm
you
from rural America. And I'm from rural America. You know what, Chris? My goal was not to drool on myself, and I think I did pretty good. I made it without a bib. I'm not promising for future episodes, but no bib tonight.
Exactly. So, guys, I think that about wraps it up. But in all seriousness, though, we're going to be back. We're also going to be at CPAC next month, and we're going to have some great stuff to talk about. I know it's going to be very, very exciting, but you're going to hear more from us. We're going to be back. We're going to be better than ever. And I want to thank you guys for tuning in.
Yes, thank you, everybody. Tune back in. We can't wait to talk to you. And, well, Chris will tell me what to say. But
Exactly.
All right, thanks, Chris. I'll talk to you later.